All right. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I think we have everyone muted when they join. So tonight we have Scott and Anna from Rivard, Aul Associates, to give us some updates on our local real estate markets and maybe some insights of, if it's a good time to buy or sell a home. So before we get started, I do just have to say that we are not associated with Scott and Anna. And they are not affiliated with TAR Financial or LPL Financial. So, final thing, we are going to do a Q&A at the end. So, hold your questions. At the top, there is a, raise your hand, and then there's a Q&A spot. You should be able to type some questions in. If we get to the end and it's not working for you to type some questions, if you just hit that raise the hand, I can unmute you. So we're going to turn it over to Scott and Anna. And I know they have a little bit of a presentation to go to. So, and Scott and Anna, just let me know when you want me to start the slides.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for you guys taking time out of your day to come and listen to us and see what we had to say. And hopefully we can answer some of your questions. I know real estate's a hot topic, so it's nice to be able to sit and explore some of that with you. So my name is Anna Rivard. This is my husband, Scott Rivard. We work at Keller Williams Lakeside. We have an office in downtown Romeo, and we have another one at 25 in Van Dyke. So that's just a little bit about us. If you want to go ahead and start the presentation, Taylor.
All right, just shared it. So I think you should be able to see it.
All right, perfect. Yeah, this is just a little introductory page so you can see a little bit more who we look like. It's been an entertaining market, that's for sure. So we got a couple of little things here. If you want to scan the QR code, you can. It'll direct you directly to Anna and I's website and all the other stuff, so you can check out some of the other items that we're talking about.
Reviews and things like that as well. Okay, next slide. So one of the things that we're going to talk about is the inventory. So the housing inventory, what this shows you is the month supply. So every house that's on the market, how long it would take to sell all of those in that if it took 6 months to sell those, that would be a balanced market. Currently we are at 2.7. We are at 2.7, so it would take 2.7 months to sell all of the inventory that is currently active on the market.
That is a very low number. That is not a number we like to see. That is why it has been a sustained seller's market for a long period of time at this point. Lack of supply and a large demand, even with interest rates, which we'll get to a little bit later. There has just been nothing on the market. And I'm sure some of you are seeing that the latest statistic says 2022. We get these from the National Association of Realtors. They have not updated the 2023 yet, but based on our local area, Romeo, Washington, Macomb area, we're actually a tidbit under the 2.7 months as of right now. So we are still very, very far away from a sustained 6 months, 7 months of inventory, so that buyers are able to, let's just say, go out there and it's a little easier for them to find and pick homes.
If you look back, you can see, through 06 to 012, all of that's a little bit higher. That was a buyer's market. Everybody remembers when the market kind of fell like that, and that there was so many houses on the market. So the sellers were the ones that were really trying to strive and get their houses sold. And since that time, it's swapped. The market's cyclical. So right now we're in a seller's market.
Yes, and just from personal experience back in 09, 2010, 2011, this is not something I'm proud of, but I was part of the market at this particular time. Is we were getting listings very, very well. At one point, I had 10 of them, not one of them sold. We were constantly doing price reductions, things like that, because there were so many homes on the market and there were so few qualified buyers because of what happened in the financial market, that the buyers had their choices of 40, 50, 60 different homes. Whereas today, if we go out and look at 4 and you don't write an offer on one, you're probably going to miss out for a very short period of time. So that's just a little bit of how much different, 15 years ago was to today.
So to kind of wrap that up, I would say that what this is mainly showing you is that if you're looking to sell, it's definitely still a good time. You're going to get a great price for your house. On the flip side of it, if you're looking to buy, you definitely want to make sure that you're working with somebody that is familiar with the area and they're aggressive with their showings, that they drop everything and go at that moment, because you have to be really quick to get in the door, and then with their negotiating skills. So that kind of wraps up the inventory slide.
All right, so this one's actually pretty self-explanatory. This is our annual home prices, I'm drawing the blank on the actual word we're using.
The appreciation.
Appreciation, I apologize. But yes, this is actually the appreciation from 1990 to today. We're trying to stick with the last 30 years. You will see a little bit later in the presentation, a little bit farther back to continue our trends on. As you can see, it dipped there during the recession. There's no real big problem with that. A lot of people, I'm sure some of you have gone through this, where 2008, 2009, you thought your home prices went down 20, 30%. As you can see here, they didn't. Most homes were dropping 10 to 12%. But if you were able to stay in the home, you're probably in a better spot now because you've got a decent rate, you have some equity in the house, and you probably did not overpay for it at that point. And now, if you see the 2023 numbers, we're 7% above the actual trend. So our actually year over date, we're making and appreciating more and more money every year.
So the average appreciation is 7%. And in the last few years, you can see 2021, 2022, 23, and even currently, we were a little bit higher than that. So it dipped down. If you were able to hold your home through that 08 period, I know I did, and some people did, some people had to give them back, but if you were able to hold through, you did come back up and you do have equity in that home again. The standard rule is if you're going to be able to hold your home for 7 years, that you'll make money on it. So as long as, if it's a good time to buy or not, it's always the rule is just if it's the right time for you and your family. And as long as you can hold for 7 years, you'll be good. Anything else you want to say on that?
No, on that particular one, I think we've kind of covered where it's at. Our numbers are a little bit higher, but that's like everything else right now. The numbers are all the way across the board higher. That's why interest rates are a little higher now than they were before. But
so this one I find interesting because when we're looking across the board, when you're out shopping, you're at the grocery store, the gas station, anywhere, everything is so expensive. And that's all anybody's talking about is how expensive everything is and the affordability of homes. And they kind of wrap that in with all of those. And when you're looking at this graph, it kind of shows you that that's not exactly 100% on par. Back in 81, 49 cents to the dollar was what it took to, to run your household. And now when you're looking at fast forward to 2023, we're at 29 cents on the dollar. Even less prior to that when we were going through COVID and some of those other things. But so when they're talking about affordability, it's down, when you're looking at the national average was 27%. We're only slightly above that. And that's at 72. So that's a pretty good view of an average.
yeah, absolutely. It does make the numbers look a little bit different because we're so used to being on the news and watching other things like gas and this and this and this the numbers are so much higher. But really, if we're looking at historical rates since 1972 in the United States, we're really only about 2% above where our normal average of how much. And this is why we like to say, instead of being 49% out of 100, we like to say that's 49 cents out of every dollar. It gives you the basic way of looking at it. So like now it is 29% out of every dollar that you're spending is going towards your house and your total income. So as it has risen, it is also not nearly as bad as it's been in the past. And we do expect that number to kind of level itself out again here. That's also one of the reasons that they raised interest rates, is trying to slow those numbers a bit.
So we thought we would dive in a little bit into our own local market and just give you some of those numbers of what's going on. This is what, when we get a lot of our calls, this is what people want to know is the numbers. So first we looked at Macomb County. Macomb County as a whole, we have 1,000 new listings in the last 30 days, which sounds like a lot, but that's all of Macomb County. So that's down 6% just in the last month. Now, when you're talking about, we're talking about March and April, to be down in the spring market is interesting. And then the active listings, so that's the total amount. So there's 1,034, 1,010 of them were brand new. So you can see how fast they're selling. That number is also down 32%. But it just, you can see they go on in 30 days and then that same amount is off right away.
And then kind of on the back end of that, now we're looking at 13 days on market. So that's from as soon as we put it on the market to the day we get an accepted offer is about 13 days. That's actually down 24%. And that is kind of the opposite of what Anna was saying, because now people are getting out, they're looking, they're wanting to buy faster. So the homes are getting off the market quicker and quicker as we're coming out of our winter market and coming into our spring market. And now this next stat is the one that really makes me laugh, because back in 2009, I remember the average Macomb median home was $92,000. As we sit here in 2024, our average sale price in Macomb County, and this is all Macomb County, northern, southern, everywhere, it is $244,000 and change. So to people that are thinking I can go get a $200,000 house these days and it's going to be my starter home, it is much, much more difficult than that. And this is just an average. Obviously, every area varies, but with those numbers being quite as high and as flat as they are, it has affected home buying ability for quite a few first timers.
So to wrap that up, basically, so the sales price is up, the days on market is down, so it's going to sell quick, it's going to sell high, and then it's reflected on those new listings and then the active listings on how quickly that's going. And then if we zoom in and we go to Romeo specifically to just, and I'm not sure where everybody's from, so we just kind of picked what, our local area. So Romeo has 6 new listings in the last 30 days. That shows you there's just no inventory. 30 days, only 6 people in all of Romeo listed their houses. And that accounted for 10 total homes, which is down 9%. The median sales price is up 109% year over year, making $463,000 for the average home in Romeo. Now, the one that's a little skewed, it says 86 days to sell, and that's up 473%. We really should have probably corrected that, but it's because there's new construction out there, and the new construction is, they put them on the market right away, even though they're still building them.
Yes.
So it takes a little, so that's why it's nice to have somebody to kind of decipher what those numbers and translate what those numbers mean to you, because when you look at them, they can be skewed in different ways. So that's one of those that's a little skewed.
Yeah, because today's market, if it's on 86 days and it's built and it's decent, then there's a problem, because there's no reason anything should be on the market that long. But Anna's correct. New construction, they list it before the home's even being built, and then they continue to market it throughout the time that it's already done and then sold. So those can be on the market up to a year. So that's where the days on the market get skewed. But
my favorite part about this slide is 109%. That's a huge increase. That just goes to show you that if you invest in the right area and one of the up and coming, that you're gonna make a lot of equity and have a good investment there. So let's see, what's our next slide? Okay, mortgage rates. That's all anybody talks about is the mortgage rates. So looking at this one, so we do the historical average that goes from 1972 to 2023. And over all of that time, the average was 7.81%. So everybody's going, oh, it's so, and I guess as of today, 7.43% is a 30-year mortgage, the average rate nationally. If you're going to do a 15-year, it's 6.84%. So when you're looking at, 7.5%, you're still below the historical average. And then when you're speaking from just the last 30 years,
Well, it makes people laugh because this is a stat that they really don't put on the news because they want to scare you with these mortgage rates when in all actuality, if you look at the historical trends, we are still on the lower end of what most people would pay on a yearly basis. I mean, I'm sure there's people in here that have bought back in the 80s and 90s. I mean, I know for my parents' purchases bought at 12.5% in the 90s, and that was a fantastic new construction rate. So we lived in a fantasy land the last 7 to 8 years with these 2s and 3s and 4% interest rates that were massively unsustainable. But since we were coming out of a recession, they were trying to get everybody back on pace, trying to get people on home ownership. They kept the numbers down. That was unsustainable. We always knew that was unsustainable. But the question we get the most is when is the next crash coming? Because they see that the interest rates are going up, everybody assumes that the market is going to crash. And based off of the numbers we gave you before, with the supply being as low as it is, the inventory being as low as it is, there's really no wiggle room. So we, even with the higher interest rates, are still getting the same activity as we were 2-3 years ago. The only thing that's changed is people are not going really, really, really crazy with, asking 40, 50, 60,000 over asking and doing appraisal guarantees and all that stuff. People are still selling, and they're selling quickly, but those numbers have skewed a bit because people have really become mindful of what that extra interest rate is going to add to their payment. So it's kind of brought people back to reality because 3% was never going to sustain.
There's a lot of extra, room in your budget when you were looking at taking out a loan at 2.5% or 2.75 or whichever you were at. So people were giving a lot of cash up front, which was a very difficult market. But now we're balancing out really nicely. So talking about the equity, I think our next slide. Yeah, so this is on the right-hand side, you're going to see a seller's net out sheet. And if you've ever sold your home, then you should have seen one of these. This gives you a breakdown of all the costs and fees associated. At Keller Williams Lakeside, and Scott and I just in general, we're very transparent, very open book. So this is just an example. Things change and there's things, but we'll go over that second. On the left-hand side, this just goes to show you what home ownership looks like and what equity looks like nationwide. Out of 87 million homeowners, if you look down at the bottom, there's all those purple houses and the green houses. Those show you that 70% or more have at least 50% equity in their home. 40% have free and clear. They've paid off their mortgage completely. And that also goes to show you why there's not going to be a crash, is because people have equity, they have the cash, a lot more than people know. They tend to focus on the negative.
Yep.
So some of the fees that are associated with selling your home, and this is a service that Scott and I offer. If anybody is interested, we either can go out to your home or we can email you, do a Zoom. But if you're interested in seeing what your home can sell for, we look at all the comps in the area and we come up with what we think your house would be worth. Of course, if we're in the home, we can get a more accurate description, but so you look at your sales price, your mortgage payoff. This example, we have a sales price of 500 grand. Your mortgage payoff might be 195,000. The average commission would be 6%. That's up or down. And then of course, there's lots of things going on surrounding that right now, but the average commission is 6%, so that would be 30 grand.
And that is split down the middle. Most people don't think that. They see a number that is split between the selling agent and the buying agent. So there are two different fees that go out there.
It's one of the biggest misconceptions when people go to sell their home for sale by owner. They think they're going to save 6%, but they're actually only saving 3% because they still have to pay a buyer's agent. So,
and then your title insurance is going to be based on the sales price of your home. It is 100% state mandated. So every title company varies very, very small, but the numbers for the actual policies are the same because it's going to base off of the exact price your home sells for. It bases each one off of per thousand. So if you sell for 500,000 or 501,000, the price is going to vary based off of that. The next one is the one that most people do not know. They know they have to pay taxes, but they don't know how much. So the next two,
Transfer.
the transfer state and county transfer taxes. Now, I like to add them up and make it very easy. It is $8.60 per $1,000 your home sells for. And that is taken right off the top. That is taken out at closing. That is not something you need to do after the fact. But it is a number that the state is going to come after, guaranteed no matter what, every time. So that's a number we like to tell people up front so that they are not surprised about another $3,700 to $4,500 when you're sitting at the closing table and you're looking at the paperwork and you're saying, where's my money going?
So if it's a $500,000 house, you take 500 times it by 8.6, and that will give you your tax, your transfer tax amount. So that's just a basic breakdown. And like I said, if you're interested in having something like that done, there's no charge for it's called a net out sheet.
Yep. 'Cause everybody's always curious what their house is worth, but nobody ever wants to call us out there. And there's another very large misconception. Anna and I are both associate brokers with our company. So we are able to give you a comparative market analysis, which really breaks down the dollar for dollar amount of what your house is worth without you going out and paying for an appraiser to go out to your home. Appraisers go out, they'll charge you anywhere from $400 to $750. And they're going to come up with the same exact information that Anna and I are, but we are not going to charge you for it. We do this as a complimentary service so that you are extremely aware and you know what your home and your value is so that you're comfortable making future decisions on everything.
And there's no pressure with anything like that ever. And with an appraiser, sometimes it can be a little bit off because they don't take into consideration a lot of different aspects about the home. So they don't care a lot about some of the decorative upgrades or, what kind of trim or, things that you have done like that, where we do. And Scott and I are in the market we're in so many houses in a month, it's unreal. So we have a really good idea and grasp on what those things are valued at for the actual consumer.
One more thing, and this is something we like to tell everybody, this is not going against any specific website, but it's one of the most popular search sites that people go on that give you a value for your home. If you are living in a condo complex, yes, that number may be right because every home is very similar, very cookie cutter, should I say. So those numbers actually work. But if you're going on there and truly looking up a value of your home, please don't listen to that because 95% of the time it is very, very off. So you want to call somebody local like Anna and I that know the property, know the area, know the subdivisions, and we can come in and actually give you a true market value versus a quick number that was computer generated from somewhere in California.
The Zestimate can be off in either direction by 7%. So that's a big amount, especially when you're thinking that you can be underselling your home too. I've talked to people that thought they got a really great deal on their home, listed it for sale by owner, followed the Zestimate amount, put it up, it sold in a day. They were super happy. And when I already knew in the home that I've been in and I know what we could have sold it for, it's kind of heartbreaking, but it happens,
Well, we just did this actual deal about a month ago. It was a friend of Anna's. She wanted to put it up for sale by owner. She wanted to list it for $380,000 because that's what Zillow had told her. And then I said that was not a correct number. We went in at 425 and we sold it for 419,000 and change. So just the amount of money we covered in difference and all that stuff netted her an extra, what, 20 some $1,000. She was ecstatic. She was happy. And she was a little sad that she wasn't, that she was going to do for sale by owner in the first place.
Okay, so I think from there we can open it up if anybody has any questions.
All right, let me get back. So, yeah, let me open up the Q&A, see if we got any questions there, and then we can go to individuals. So first question we had from Matt is, where do you see interest rates going in 2024 and 2025?
You want me to? We both have our opinion on this one because we spent a lot of time with our mortgage brokers and our mortgage affiliates and associates. And it started out this particular year that we were told mid-year, second quarter, we were going to start getting interest rate drops. That does not look like it's going to happen now, especially because it is an election year. Tends to be fantastic for real estate, tends to bring rates down. But it doesn't look like we're going to get any rate drops until at least Q3. And it's not going to go down as fast as we were hoping. We were looking for 3 to 4 rate drops before the end of the Q4. Right now, it's looking at best case scenario, probably 1 to 2 rate drops, and it still is going to most likely linger in the middle of next year, which we're hoping for around 6% is where we expect to land. Obviously, we're looking at market trends and those things, so we're not set in stone on that one, but it does look like 6% is where the Fed is really trying to land that number.
So there's historians that we talk to that's all they do is look at the history and how things repeat and do, and how the market goes up and down and how everything, and taking in all of those factors. That's what they're saying is probably you won't see anything lower than 6%.
All right. Any other questions? If you can't figure out the Q&A, you can raise your hand if you'd like. There's a raise your hand button at the top. While we're waiting for that, one question I hear quite often, and even for myself, as far as doing an investment property, do you guys help with that, like determining, because a lot of times when you're looking at investment properties, those people want to sell either for sale by owner or they want to do land contracts. Do you guys help with, determining a fair price for those as well?
Yes, we do. We actually work with investors quite often. We try to make it as simple and seamless as possible, especially in today's world. If they're looking, say the seller's looking to unload a property, but they also don't want to pay capital gains, we work on doing land contracts and moving the money around in ways that it's advantageous for everybody. But we're also looking at this from an investor's point of view, because Anna and I also like to invest in real estate properties and own our own rental properties. So when we're being good with the numbers, we're telling you exactly how this is going to cost, what it's going to get you, what your net going to be at the end of the month. And is it truly advantageous as a buyer to go in there, and are they going to make what they think they're going to make on the property after they pay upfront costs and all the other stuff? Anna's a little more on the formal with the numbers as it is, and I'm a little more, I should say, the bones of the house. So we will go through, because we know rental houses, they tend to be a little bit more worn. People tend to beat them up a tidbit more. So we truly like to go in there and give a set value, because every investor thinks their home's worth a fortune and every buyer wants to go in light, but that doesn't work in today's market.
So when you're talking about investment homes, it's such a blanket statement because there's so many different aspects, whether you're talking about like a short-term rental, a long-term rental, are you looking to flip? So when you're talking with all those different aspects, so for the short-term rental, we actually have just opened, we're launching a short-term rental department called Stays With Us that I'm going to be running for Keller Williams Lakeside. So we have investors that we pool together that all pitch in and kind of purchase together and so you can have investment opportunities there. You can also do the opposite, where we're looking for the properties. So if you have a property you think might be a good Airbnb and you pitch it to us, we have a group of investors that might be looking into purchasing it. If you're looking for a flip, Scott and I have done several flips, so we're able to give you the amounts on, what it's going to cost to rehab the whole thing. That also goes into play when you're looking at the fixes and things that might need to be done to your home to list it. When we come in to do that CMA, we're able to tell you too what the flooring might be, the carpet, paint, what those associated costs are going to be. And then, in terms of like package sales and things like that, Scott's handled some of those things where there's been, groups of smaller priced homes that, he has access to, or we help people purchase. So, it's a pretty wide variety of things, and there's different loans and different services and things that we that are constantly coming up. They're ever changing, so it's not really worth talking about any of the rates and the the ins and outs of those because they're ever changing.
I was working with an investor today, actually. He's a good friend of mine. He's purchasing 11 homes, partial on mortgage, partial on land contract. And we were going through the terms, and I was seeing if you want to do a portfolio loan, which is more of an investor loan, you put a little bit more money down. Credit doesn't seem to matter as much. And then we were talking about individual mortgage rates. And once we broke down all the numbers and everything, and we got his rental rates and what we thought the homes were worth, we determined it was a better idea for him to do 4 separate mortgages than it was to do a portfolio loan, because he would have had to bring more money out of pocket, cost repairs, all the other stuff. So we spent about 45 minutes today speaking, and it really, really opened his eyes, and I was able to really push him in the right direction. And now he's excited. He's moving forward. We have a good investment portfolio all set up for our client now.
That's awesome. I don't see any other, and I have one more, just because we sometimes get questions that don't always, get pushed on to realtors. So have you guys had much experience in the 1031 space? We do get some questions on that. And I guess it'd just be good to be able to pass those on to you if you have some experience there.
That would be you.
I have not done 1031 in a while with the exchanges and everything. It has been a minute. A lot of the times we were doing them was back when 2011, 2012. And it was mostly people trying to run away from taxes and run away from capital gains, things like that. And it is a smart way of transferring home ownership. It really is. It's just something I haven't dipped my toes into in a while. But like we were saying with the investment thing, it really is a case by case basis on if it is advantageous or if it's not.
We do have the OP of our office has insight and experience, quite a bit of experience with it. So that would be our go-to, is to sit down with him and have him go over everything like that, because it's really a niche. You can't excel at every area. So that would be something, if somebody reached out or they had questions, he would answer those in 2 seconds for us.
That's awesome. All right, we did have a couple more questions come in. So the first one, what is the likelihood of the subject to clause being called an off-market deal?
What do you mean? Subject to the sale of something else, subject to the loan being completed? There's a lot of subject tos. So I'm just curious on which one they mean.
Okay. Matt, if you want to maybe follow up with a further question there. His other one, while he's maybe clarifying that, is differences between land contract versus subject to buys.
That's where I still need a little bit more clarification to be able to.
So a land contract, so it depends on what the seller is looking for. They come up with their interest rate that they would like. There is a cap on it. I think it's 10% or is it 11%? 11% in Michigan. So you have your interest rate that you charge, how much they want for their down payment. Depends if it's going to be a shorter, if it's maybe a vacant land and it's not a very large expense, then it might be a little bit more of a down payment that they want. High down payment, 7-8% interest, and then they make their payments. If they default, usually they lose the property. It's usually how it's written up, but it all depends on how they write it up. It's the same as, it's similar to like a rental agreement. Now, subject to buy, I'm not familiar with that term.
Yeah. There's just, the subject to is just there. It's pretty open.
Yeah, and Matt, I can connect you with Scott and Anna. I feel like lately have been talking almost every single day with the stuff that we've been doing. So
yeah.
Scott and Anna just helped my wife and I buy our next future home. So we work pretty closely together. So Matt, I can connect you guys to maybe if you have some more in-depth questions.
We'd love to sit down with them and have a conversation just to be able to clarify everything.
Yep. So we can do that. So. All right. So we try to keep this, on a time frame here. So you might have had one more. Yeah, perfect. He said we could take it offline. So I'll connect you too. So thank you everyone for joining. We try to do this once a quarter. We just bring in some other professional, as they mentioned. We can't be knowledgeable in every single space. So we try to bring in a professional that's maybe not a topic we talk about every single day to bring it to our clients. So I appreciate everyone for joining. And we did record this, so if there's anyone that maybe wants to review a part of it, we can talk about that offline. But thanks for joining, and we'll hopefully see you next time.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. All right,
Have a good
thanks.
night.